Good afternoon, everyone. We are back for our second painting of today, and apologize for the longer break than I intended, but I really needed it. So you'll see that I didn't fill in all the details on this. I left it a little more simplistic than the reference image, so I'm going to change it a little bit. First thing first, I'm going to decide what I want for my background. Well, no, think about what color you want your cat. I'm going to leave it mostly white like they did, but then I'm going to do, I think, little blue hearts all over it and blue on the ears. And then maybe like a purple bow is what I'm going to do. So if I'm going to do this mostly blue and then this part purple, I'm thinking for my background, I'm going to want something green. I want to keep it all kind of jewel toned. So I'm going to grab myself some phthalo green. If you're wanting to follow this as close to the reference image as possible, you could leave it white. I do recommend kind of switching maybe to a pink if you're leaving it red, just for a little more differentiation, but that is entirely your choice. And I'm just going to kind of quick put on this background. And you could theme this technically maybe to a cat that you have or that a friend has if you're giving it as a gift, or if they've got stripes, or you could do anything you want. You don't have to do this exactly as I'm doing it. That's why I wanted to leave my template sort of blank. If you're a Patreon member, for $2 a month, you can have the traceable, and you'll get this image that you can transpose onto your canvas. Or if you want to use the technique like I did in the last video by using gel medium to put your directly the piece of paper on there and use that as sort of a coloring guide, it can be quite helpful. Make sure you get your sides. I need a little more paint on my palette. And I'm trying not to get too close to my actual line work with this brush. I'm just trying to get the bulk of the color in and then go back in and get closer to my design. And I put my design in using watercolor pencil. And like I said before, I'm not trying to get too close to my edge right now. I'm just trying to fill in the bulk of the background. And I'm going to turn my canvas so I can get to the side real quick. I'm going to turn my canvas over so I can get the bottom. Being careful not to touch any of the sides that are wet. I'm going to get the bottom here real fast. And again, just getting kind of close to my image, but then I'm going to go back in with a smaller brush to get closest. Right, I'm going to flip my canvas over. And I'm going to switch over to using a 1 round. And I'm just going to finish kind of getting close to my line. You want to make sure you get any of the little white dots where the canvas didn't accept any paint on there as well. You want to make sure it's totally coated. And I'm trying to kind of keep my strokes up and down for this, just because that's the kind of look I want. And then over here on the side. We'll probably add a little more dimensionality to our background, but for now I just want to get a layer of paint across the entire canvas. That very first layer. I had a friend come visit me when I was finished with my first stream of the day. I had some stuff that I needed to give her. So excited for, you know, those things to have new homes. I don't like waste, and I don't like unnecessarily like taking things to Goodwill if I know someone who can just use the item. Okay, and I need a little more paint on my palette. And just kind of finishing up around my line here. Okay, and we're almost half done getting around our lines done, just to get the base layer of our background in. Okay, we're almost done with this part. Alright, and I'm just going to go ahead and use up the rest of this green paint that I've got on my palette to darken up sections where I've already got the first layer in, just to kind of help darken it up. Because I want something that's a little more substantial than your standard Valentine. And phthalo green, if you're following along exactly like me, will get darker with every application. So just be aware of that. Okay, and we're almost done using up the last of this paint. I just don't like to waste paint, so I always try to find a way to use it. Sometimes it changes the landscape of what you're working a little bit, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It's just a learning curve for you to learn how much paint you need for what you're doing. Now is a good time to kind of check to make sure that you've got all your little white spaces filled in, that you don't have any little wispies of canvas that have not accepted paint. And we'll do more with our background in a bit, but so don't feel like it has to be perfect now or make total sense right now. You may change your mind a little bit about your background once you get more of the actual subject matter in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush. And I'm going to start thinking about my bow. I'm going to start with my bow. And I've got this pretty like metallic purple paint that I want to use for my bow. So I'm going to start with that. And I'm going to use my 1-inch round to kind of start filling in that space. Okay. Okay. We'll go back and we'll add some like variation and details. And you can see I got a little bit of paint that went a little awry. So I'm going to use a little bit of white paint to correct that. It might be a good idea to dry your canvas if you're apt to sticking your hands in your paint like I am. We're going ahead and dry our canvas. Actually, I just had a fun kind of thought about this. Maybe instead I'll do this as like a Cheshire cat. I don't know. We'll see. I'll finish putting in my bow and I'll decide after that. Because I think that could be fun. Now, even though this area is overlapping, I'm going to maintain my brush strokes like it's its own separate piece. Because I'm going to add in details later for shading that will make more sense. And I really want the brush strokes to kind of tell that bit of that story. I don't want to rely solely on shading and value for that. I want that to make sense right here in this too.
The motherboard we ordered, I went to pulled up the order history. Saw it says, it says open box. Open box, you don't know. It's no explanation. This has been recertified by our team at Newegg. Newegg has recertified this product. It was at one point open, and perhaps it was used. Maybe it wasn't. But in either case, what Newegg has done is taken it out of the box, has to make sure it works. The box.
All right, and we're going to put another quick layer of that paint up here at the top while it's still wet, just because it'll help darken the ends. Okay, and now we'll do the underside of that bow.
So I had to buy a laptop and stuff. So I did. I remember when I got it in, I had to call the support because it was disgusting. Like it was like.
And the same with this. You're wanting to maintain the idea of the inside of this bow with your brush strokes. Okay, and now we're going to do this side over here. I'm going to do the little back section of this bow first.
There's pubic hair sticking out of the chassis where it looks like someone has opened it, reassembled it, and cracked a lot of that stuff in there. And it is also from all over the keyboard and the pin. I don't know how that happened. But I don't want to touch this. So how about we trade? They traded. That was my last open box experience. This is the next one. Newegg. How does that happen? How do you get 100% failure rate on one customer? Come on. There's obviously something wrong here. So what from? I'm just a customer.
All right, and now we'll do the bottom side of that bow.
Agree that obviously your staff took a product that was returned from a customer. Your staff opened that product. Your staff installed the CPU improperly and sent pins, and they put it in the box, and they told me something that was real. By the way, just to add a point here, it wouldn't have mattered even if we did verify what was in the box, what was damaged. You can do it would obviously still just lie and say we damaged it. Now, they obviously didn't trust us to begin with, and they wouldn't trust us anymore if we claimed we had to remove it. With the step that, the result would have been the same. One more thing, too, when we played out on Twitter, a couple people.
And then now the bottom side of this bow.
You should always open a box while the postal carrier is there. Make sure the product is damaged and that it's arrived in one piece. Well, that's cool that your carriers are willing to wait around while you open a box and then open the product box and expect the thing on the motherboard. But I actually understand that they have places to go and a lot of packages to deliver in a day. So the way it works, at least in the US, if you're not familiar, is basically the carrier shows up, they put the box on your doorstep, and they leave. It's not like you have a chance to open it in front of them. It's just there. You might not even be home when it
All right, and then just around the front and the collar. I'm going to change the collar line a little because I don't like it. I'm going to let it come down a little more even on that side.
So anyway, that's how this happened. And it went from nice customer, nice Steve, talking to people in a very understanding way, to this is now undercover warranty series. We've done these videos in the past.
Okay, and now I'm going to take a little bit of black paint and I'm going to mix it in because this paint is still very wet. And I want to create some shadow work for my bow. So I think this would look really cool also as like a zombie cat. I mean, I know that's not where we're working towards here right now, but I think that'd be really cool. And I'm kind of just adding a little bit of like definition to the idea of where the shadow on these bows are. And just kind of a little bit of a little thing there. And then maybe just a little bit here too. We'll go ahead and we'll outline this bow in black. And here we kind of have where a little bit of work there. And then we're going to put a little bit here too, because we're trying to kind of tell about the idea of this being behind that part of the bow, which I haven't put in yet. But we definitely want, it to be clear that that part is behind and that part is above. And I think we're also, they didn't do this, but we're going to do a little bit of like that there too. I'm going to switch back to my 1-inch round, and I'm going to kind of blend this a little bit. I don't want that so stark into my purple metallic paint. And then do another quick little layer in some areas just so that it's nice and rich and dark. And same for back here. We want this really rich. All right, and now we're going to do the front part of this bow on this side. And I'm going to go ahead and outline this with black. So I have the kind of the beginning of my bow there. I'm going to come back and do more later, but for now, we're going to leave that as it is. Now I'm going to start putting in kind of the colors I'm thinking for my cat. And I'm kind of thinking I want to use my favorite color, which is kind of like a turquoise teal. And I'm going to go ahead and outline it. And I'm using it again, a kind of metallic color because I like the idea of it being that way. And I may include some of this in there. And I'm not going to paint the whole cat this color. I'm just outlining him in this for now, or her. I'm outlining her in this for now. Okay.
We're not cool anymore. I thought we were cool. They said, sorry, we're unable to refund you since we haven't returned your please call me.
It occurs to me, I think I've got some shiny green paint too that I might kind of work into the background, just so that this whole thing can be kind of shiny. I think that could be fun.
Okay, so this is my personal build at home. You leave your windows open, which completely coats your home office slash game room in dirt. Fine powdery sand, because I live near the desert, and it all finds its way into the system more importantly inside. Radiators and fans.
And I'm gonna go ahead and outline around like all the areas where the cat's body would be.
The XG32OU gaming mark. The XG32OU features a 4K 32-inch display with a limited refresh rate built upon ViewSonic's very lean panel layout. ViewSonic Elite Series monitors feature setup, whether it be professional or personal, due to their sleek design and faithful lighting. Learn more about ViewSonic's gaming monitors, or we see the full line of the monitor, with links in the description. So ever since I retired Skunkworks with my SMAD, which there made it to the end.
All right, we're almost done kind of getting this part in. You just got the head really kind of left to go. The paint I'm using is a little bit thicker than I'm used to using for this kind of work. Normally I would want my lines to be thinner, but I'm having a little bit of fun with this design choice, so I'm just going to roll with it. Right, and I'm going to flip it upside down just to make it easier to get to the head without sticking my hands in my paint. Now I'm going to go ahead and outline the face.
The challenge here is the fact that when you live in a dusty, dirty area like I do, I live on the edge of civilization. I am in SoCal, but I am like literally right on the edge of where the desert begins. So we get lots of wind and very fine, sandy dirt. Something that can't be helped with the areas I live in. And if you take a look, it doesn't show too bad right now, so I kind of look up slightly. This graphics card right now, dirt inside the fan. There'll be dirt inside here as well. So one of the things I want to do is take this out, and we'll do this in a video right after this. You'll see the video. Is I'm going to disassemble the cooler on this so I can get in here and clean up fan blades and stuff as possible. And then I might actually ditch the vertical mount and go with the standard horizontal mount, only because of the fact that in this position, with the fan in the back blowing right against the motherboard,
We'll probably fill in the ears, kind of like how they did with their accent color. But for now, I'm just kind of getting my color in.
It sort of just recirculates. So the fact that the N928 is able to keep itself even somewhat cool is kind of impressive, yeah, because it does a lot of recirculating on air. But one of the things I find very useful for any sort of toolkit is just to get yourself some soft bristle brushes. It really comes in handy when it comes to painting fans. We'll start with the rear. This is the back of the case. So because everything's sort of mounted internally, this exhaust it literally pulls the air out. You got 360 millimeters worth of fans here to do that. So if you take a look at the edge of the fan blade, you can see.
And we'll have a little bit of like stitches and whatnot on here too. Because remember, this is a stocked cat. And I'm not going to do the eyes and the nose or the mouth because I'm going to do those in black. So I'll go ahead and put those in. And then the nose. And so we've got our basic kind of outline in. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and fill in the top side of his ears. And then again on this side. Now I do think I'm not going to leave my cat totally white. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some iridescent medium. When I find it, it seems to have run off. There it is. And I'm going to dilute this pretty blue that I used to outline with just that iridescent paint. And I'll do that with my one round. Take a little bit of that blue and mix it into my iridescent and make a slightly like lighter shade. To fill in the ear. And that's still not quite as light as I want, so I'm going to mix some white in there. Let's try that again. And then on this side. And I kind of like that as a shade. I think we're going to go ahead and use that everywhere. And we're just kind of filling it in. And if you wind up covering your line a little bit, you can always take some of your blue back and put it back in. Are we really careful around our black? I'm thinking we're gonna do like little purple hearts on this kitty. Kind of reverse it a little bit. And we'll be filling in the nose and eyes a little bit after we get the base of the body in. And I'm going to switch to using a smaller brush so I can get under the nose. And I'm going to fix some of my brush strokes because I don't want it to, I want my directionality to make sense. There. All right, and now we're going to fill in down here. Oop, my canvas moved a little on me. The more I do this, the more I wished I had done like a zombie cat. I think a zombie cat would have been so cool for like an un-Valentine's Day. And we're just kind of taking our time filling in this space. Very relaxing. You don't need to rush. If you were choosing to leave this white, you would still want to cover your canvas in white before putting anything down. Now for over on this side, and I'm going to flip my canvas a tiny bit so that way I can get to this area without resting my hand in my paint. And I think for this one, I'm not going to put any words on it. I think I'm going to do like a design on the bow, maybe stripes or something. I'm not sure. I'm going to wait to do the bow until very last. Anything. Oop, my canvas just moved on me. Just trying to get a little of the excess off so I can grab some of my plain blue and put my line back in. Okay, then down under here. And we're still just kind of taking our time filling this in. And we're almost done with this base layer. Something like this, doing an alternate color design would be great if you're, giving a gift or, your living room is not conducive to the color red, or if they're kind of alternative. Just, just know that you can always kind of change the reference image. All right, so I've got the base in. I'm gonna go ahead and go around and touch up all of my dark lines just to make sure that they haven't gotten lost. We're just kind of touching up our lines. All right, we're almost done with this part. And my paint is really thick, so I know before I do anything else after I do this, that I'm going to need to dry it to be able to do any other kind of work. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and dry it. My paint is still a little wet, but it is dry enough for me to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and finish out the eyes and mouth. So I'm going to kind of reline my eye. And it kind of comes off to the side. And I'll go ahead and fill in the pupil. And then on this one, it kind of goes like that. Go ahead and fill in the pupil. I'm going to kind of extend the eye a little bit there. Okay, so we've got the basis of the eye in. I'm going to give this cat purple eyes. So I'm going to do a little strip of purple, kind of going around the black. And the same on this side. And now we're going to give her some lashes. And it's kind of going to go like that. And a little second one there like that. And kind of two little ones there. And over here, they do kind of three. I think there should be one there as well. So those are kind of her eyes. And we'll go ahead and fill in the nose because they've got the nose kind of filled in. And I'm going to fix where the line got lost for the mouth. And we'll keep it with like having a bit of a little dimple there. We'll wind up kind of smoothing that line out a bit once it's dry. And put a little bit of red paint in the tongue. I'm not big on warm colors, but here in this sense, it makes sense to go ahead and just do it. And we'll go ahead and re-outline the tongue. And we'll put a little bit of light in the eye. And they did put like a little bit of thing there for the tongue. So we'll do that too. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and commit to the idea of purple hearts on the kitty. We're going to do that. Although I am going to go ahead and add my little stitch designs on my lines here. Okay, this is a stuffed kitty. So it has stitch marks. Which is why it's okay that it's not a standard color. And we'll go ahead and we'll do that here on his chest, on her chest, his chest, her chest, however you want to think about it. And it's going to go here too. And here as well. And a little bit here as well. And then on this side, we're going to see it kind of here. We're going to see it a little on the top of the foot. We're going to see it here. We expect to see it a little on this side. Again, we kind of expect to see, well, probably a line here too. A little there, a little on the top of their foot. Okay, so I think we're ready to go ahead and start putting in our purple cats. Now, if you watch the Queen of Hearts video and we did a multitude of tiny little hearts, it's easier to think of them in like little V shapes. And then you can kind of soften out the V. The key will be to have as little paint on your brush as possible. Will really help. And you can see I'm kind of just doing a V and then smoothing out the inside. It definitely helps when you're working on smaller hearts. And then we're going to have a couple up here. We're going to have like the idea of where one might be here, but it doesn't really fit. And this is where it's going to be a little bit dicey. Again, you're going to have the idea of where some of these might be like meeting into the seam line for where it's been sewn. So definitely, don't feel like you have to duplicate the reference image one for one. I'm certainly not going to try to. And I think I'm going to have a couple that kind of come off the edge a little bit. Oh, and I guess I should have done the bottom of his feet all in those dark shades, and I totally missed that. So let me fix that real fast while I'm thinking about it. There we go. That's better. And of course, I'm going to have a couple that come down into the foot. And maybe the idea where some might be kind of meeting into other seams, only being half shown. We're just trying to get the idea of where there's some that are not like whole. And I think I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of those up here in the head too. Maybe up in here. There. And I'm thinking we might have a little half part there. I'm thinking we should have something kind of over here. Maybe another kind of there. The idea is something kind of maybe the bottom part of a heart there, the top part of a heart there. Maybe another bottom on that section. We're just kind of suggesting. And maybe the bottom part of a section of a heart there. And a couple over here. And maybe a bottom half of a heart kind of hanging out there. And I'm going to turn it upside down, and we're going to add a little something going that way as well. Because not all of these are going the same way. So I'm going to do a couple that are a little smaller, going in the opposing direction. We don't want them all technically angled the same way, or even truly all the same size. We definitely want some variety here. Maybe a little bit of a small upside down one here. Maybe a bit of a top half there. Okay, so I'm feeling pretty good about all of my little hearts. There's a little less going on their face maybe than I would like, so I might stick another little couple of tiny little ones in there. There. Okay. So I've got the bulk of the design in. Now I'm going to finish kind of telling the story about this bow. There's a lot going on with this bow, and I want there to be a lot still kind of going on with it. So I'm going to put another layer of this dart of my purple paint down, because the more you layer paint, the darker it kind of looks. And I want the behind parts of the bow to be really dark. And I kind of painted out part of my line that I wanted to keep there, so I'm going to put that back in. And kind of same with down here. I painted out a little bit of the line I wanted. All right, now we're kind of going to add a little, I think we're going to do polka dots. We're going to put little polka dots in there. We're going to use that that original blue that I used to outline the cat first. I'm going to let some of the dots to kind of disappear into there. And there's going to be some of these dots kind of down in here as well. And we're going to put them in down here. And we're also going to see it up here. I mean, this is not like one-way ribbon. It's going to be everywhere. And if you were giving this to somebody, you could put something cute like "you're special" or "love you" or anything that you were wanting to put in there, you could put in there. And we're going to put little dots over here as well. Oop, my canvas just kind of moved on me. I use a table canvas and it does kind of slide around from time to time when I'm putting force on it. So I'm just going to paint that out a tiny bit. And then go over it. What's great about giving something like this instead of like just the stuffed animal, like a real life stuffed animal, is that a stuffed animal is something you have to wash, something you have to clean. This is something that can go up on your wall and you can look at all the time. And now I'm going to go over with like my little my dotting tool. And I'm going to use a little bit of that light color that I made as well. Okay, and we're done with the main part of this painting. So now we just got to finish deciding what we're wanting to do with our background. And I still have a lot of this paint on my palette. So I think I'm going to try and find a way to kind of work this blue into my background. This dark blue. I'm just going to slide some of it in random places over my green, and then I'm going to work it in by adding a little more green to my pen, to my canvas. I'm going to put a little bit of the phthalo green on my palette. And I'm going to blend it in to the blue that I just kind of haphazardly stuck on there. We're going to soften this background up a little bit. And then maybe when it's dry, we'll add some stripes. We'll see. We've got dots, we've got hearts. Why not? We're going full plushy. Full plushy mode. You could put swirls or whatever you're wanting into your background. I'm just wanting to do this. It allows me to give me a chance to kind of touch up and darken some of the lines that are closest to my blushy here. And we're just about done with this painting. We're just kind of working out some small details in the background. I'm going to flip it back over so I can get to the other side, the top side a little easier. And again, we're just kind of fixing some of our lines a little bit in our background. Just making them a little less noticeable. Need a little more paint on my palette to finish up. If it's not totally obvious, I love my jewel tones. They are my favorite. I do prefer to work in non-warm colors whenever possible. All right, and now I'm going to dry my painting, and I think I'm going to put a little bit of like, I don't know. It still doesn't feel finished, so I'm going to think of something else to do with my background. And the more I look at it, the more I'm thinking about the Haunted Mansion. So I think I'm going to stick a couple of black pinstripes in there. So I'm going to grab a piece of chalk. I'm kind of just marking out some lines for some stripes. And I think I'm going to do some black and white ones. So I'm going to stick some in between. Some of these I'm going to do white, and some of these I'm going to do black. Because this just feels so Haunted Mansion-y now that I feel like I have to. So I'm going to do every other line in black. And when the paint's dry, I can just dust off the chalk that I used for my guidelines. Oh, I just thought that would be cute. This could be called Yours Forever. And I'll continue the lines on the top and the bottom as well. But for now, I'm just getting these initial lines in. And I think this actually could go all the way down. Yeah, I can. Or from that little bit of that little bow. And now I'm going to take the white. And then over on this side. There, I think my Haunted Mansion fan group is going to love this. This is so cool. This is not what I intended when I started this, but I'm loving how it has kind of morphed into something kind of crossover into something spooky. I'm totally here for that. All right, and now I'm going to work on getting my lines done up over the top of it. Oh, thank you. How are you doing? This is totally not what I expected to be doing against the reference image, but I am loving the spookiness of this. This is very much like the theme of the Haunted Mansion. What time is it over there right now? 'Cause I know you're like 9 hours ahead of us. I prefer these colors too. These are actually my favorite. I'm not big on warm colors. I just don't really care for them. You caught me right at the end of this stream, but as soon as I'm done painting this one, I'm going to be moving on to the, oh, so relatively early compared to yesterday. No, not yesterday, the day before yesterday. My days are getting a little messed up, I'm sorry. I'm thinking that on the bow, I might put like yours forever, like, you know, fur, like pet fur. I'm not sure. We'll see. Just kind of finishing up the background of this, and then I'm going to dry it and then remove my chalk lines and see how I feel. I might need to touch up my lines a little bit. Oh, that's good. I'm glad you're not as tired. It is presently 4:22 for me, and I was hoping to have all of my paintings finished by now because I was going to go drop them off to be sold, but life happens, and that's okay. Sometimes it just be that way. The guitar went great. I think I posted the final picture in standard lighting on Instagram, but I don't think I posted a picture anywhere except for on the website for what it looked like under neon lighting. It came out epic. And the recipient loved it. This month's my Patreon poll had voted on vintage Valentines as my theme for my regular stream times. So I was realizing that my first market of the month is actually after Valentine's Day. So I've been trying to think of ways to kind of redo the vintage Valentine theme so that they're still marketable. Oh, thank you. So they're still marketable after Valentine's is over. So I'm kind of hoping I'm meeting the mark there, that these would still be something that would be worth, trying to sell after Valentine's Day is done. I had a couple of spots where the green didn't quite cover, so I'm going to touch that up real fast. Okay. I'm going to dry my canvas real quick. And I'm going to put a little bit of water on my brush. And I'm going to get rid of these chalk lines. Even with chalk, once you kind of pick up enough of it, you need to rinse off your brush so that you're not dragging the chalk dust around in other parts of your painting while you're trying to get rid of your lines. Are you going to be doing any bouldering in the next couple of weeks, or any trips you're excited about? I think you said that you did those mostly indoors, but there we go. Nice. Oh, I'm sorry. Coincidentally, I understand that a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I've got my kind of lines in. I'm feeling pretty good about them. I'm going to touch up a couple of spots though. Now that the chalk isn't there, I can see somewhere they aren't. I mean, they don't have to be perfectly even. That's not the kind of idea we're going for here. I mean, the lines for the Haunted Mansion are not perfectly even either. And since that's now its new inspiration, we're just going to clean it up just a tiny bit. And we're going to make this white just a little sharper too by doing a second coat. The guitar painting got displayed by immediately in a guitar store next to a signed autograph of the man whose guitar I had been copying. So that was super exciting for me. It was a very proud moment. Okay, we're almost done touching up our line there. I don't really feel like the black ones need any work. They're kind of more in the background because they're less noticeable. But this white is super noticeable because it's literally the unusual pop of non-color in this painting. This is a very colorful painting. All right, and I think I'm going to try and chalk out a yours forever kind of thing on here. The area is kind of small, so I don't know how well chalk's going to show. So I think I might just risk it and put it in white and then hope and pray for the best. Fingers crossed. It's a sort of a weird angle to work from for, so I can't get my elbow down. So we'll try this. We'll see how it goes. Oh, nope. Already out of space. Already out of space. This works because the underlayer is already really dry. But if it wasn't, that could have smeared my entire thing, which is why I usually like to try and practice with chalk first. So I need to go down a little further. Okay, so we got like the basic idea in there. And I'm feeling confident enough about it that I can put the paint on a little heavier. And I'm going to use my paint pretty light on the second word until I know it's going to fit. So I'm going to scoot all the way over here. Fur, and I think we're going to hyphenate it. Since fur is not a real word, well, fur is a real word, but not in this context. We're going to do it this way. Yeah, okay. Now we're going ahead and make the wording a little more prominent now. And I think I need to drag the bottom of my E down a little bit, and the bottom of my V needs to come down a little too. And then darken it up. Rather lighten it up, excuse me. Alrighty, I'm feeling like I might be ready to sign this one. I'll go ahead and do another quick layer there. What do you think? I think I'm going to go ahead and sign it. I think it's ready. And E and a C. The one I did earlier today was this one. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and dry it. I think it really still could benefit from another quick layer of white over the lettering, just to be really sharp. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to touch up this part where I got a little out of my control. Now, all right. I'm actually going to log out for a little bit, and I'm going to come back on in probably about 15-20 minutes so I can set up for the next one. The next one I'm doing is this. So I'm going to make it more about puppy love. So I'll see you back here in a little bit if you decide to join me. It was good chatting with you again. Signing out. See you later.